Hi, it's me again. I take it that you will all have heard that Sadiq Khan, our illustrious mayor of the capital city of this grand country of ours, has set up a diversity committee to review London statues. I, for one, am extremely worried about Khan's so-called diversity experts choosing which parts of our British heritage we will be allowed to keep. It smacks of fascism and communism rewriting the history books, and it's being led in London by a man with a foreign heritage. I can understand not wishing to celebrate slavery, of course I can. I agree that it's wrong to do so, but it's something that every single country in the world partook in, and we were the first ones to ban it. But there are other issues. The parts of our culture that will be allowed to remain will depend on who makes the choices. Now, I sometimes think that the left's idea of diversity forgets that the English, and I mean English, should be part of that diversity. The Welsh, Scots, and the Irish are still allowed to fly their flags without criticism, and quite right too. I sometimes think that the left would rather destroy our historical record than confront it and debate it, to be able to discuss the bad things as well as celebrate the good. I sometimes think that the left just want to eradicate our culture and replace it with a Marxist dystopia. Look at the hypocrisy that we're getting now. Lewis Hamilton, very talented racing driver, is saying that these statues should come down, but he drives for Mercedes. And Mercedes gained huge profits during the war by using Jewish slave labor. And then he sent the Jews to the death camps. Shouldn't Lewis Hamilton be campaigning to pull down the Mercedes factory? Volkswagen also made fortunes out of making armored vehicles, troop carriers, etc., using Jewish slave labor. Should we burn every VW now? Audi also used Jewish slave labor. Do we now burn down their factory? Should we follow the example of the diversity fascists and ban the sale of Mercedes, VWs, and Audis because they did bad things 80 years ago? Do we set fire to every Mercedes, VW, and Audi in the country? Do we burn down their dealerships? What's good for one is surely good for another, unless, like Lewis Hamilton, they are paying you millions to work for them. Either you have principles or you don't. Hamilton should resign from Mercedes and donate his wealth to Jewish causes. No, I'm not advocating that. I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy. Have you ever watched a war film set in Europe, the Second World War? Have you ever noticed how the German uniforms are so much smarter than ours? That's because they were designed by Hugo Boss. Now, should anybody wearing Hugo Boss designer clothes burn them? Should anyone wearing his fragrances wash thoroughly and ditch the products whilst hanging their heads in shame? Of course not. Winston Churchill didn't own slaves, but they want him removed. That man led us to victory over the biggest racist in 20th century history, so that is just a ludicrous idea. Netflix now is removing films that they deem racist. So, should I call for them to delete Braveheart? It's anti-English. Should I insist that they remove films about the American War of Independence because they're anti-British? Should they, for example, ban Last of the Mohicans? It's anti the Huron tribe as well as the French. Should we call for the banning of Mary Poppins because, frankly, Dick Van Dyke's Cockney accent is an insult to Cockneys? No, 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 and no. If you don't like them, just don't watch them. And I'll bet this won't happen. Should Nelson Mandela's statue be removed? Mandela launched a guerrilla war against the state in 1961. He committed many atrocities. He's not even British. Why does he have a statue in London? What has he done for Britain? Oh, you say, he ended apartheid. Well, he did some good there. If you believe the end justifies the means, fine. But those men whose statues you are tearing down also did some good. Edward Colston, for example, got his statue for being a philanthropist, not for being a slave trader. So if you're going to ignore Colston's good works because of his bad works, then why does the same not apply to Mandela? It's something that maybe you really ought to give some thought to. The point is this: the hatred has to stop. This book-burning style of government is dangerous and divisive. But if you want to pull down statues of people who did something bad, if you want to erase films that might offend some people, then you must be fair and even-handed about it. But I suspect that this is just another way that Khan and his ilk will seek to continue the offensive against British culture, on the way to the ultimate destruction and takeover of our society. And remember this: not one race in the world never had slaves, and more white Christians were enslaved by Africans than ever blacks were enslaved by whites. Why don't you protest about that? See ya.